What I heard from the last panel, if representing a company that deals with online communication, is your primary responsibility is to help educate. There really is no technical solution to intermediate. But then the question comes, what if the authorities do call? Where is that dividing line between saying we're providing a service, and I'm looking at the gentleman from Verizon, we're providing a service and we really only allow this communication as, we only allow we're a SaaS, and at what point do you give over information and help the authorities in that investigation or prosecution?
I mean, I think the simple answer to that is that if there is a subpoena that comes in from a court, then that information is provided. It's not randomly distributed. There's a whole process that's involved with requesting and receiving that information.
And do you agree that the first part of the responsibility is primarily education, providing resources?
I think we view our responsibility as threefold. It's to raise awareness about these issues, to provide access to information about what to do about it as it becomes available, and to provide tools that help you manage your experience. So they're coupled. It's not that tools don't work or that education is the answer. All three of those are essential. The tools by themselves, if the customer doesn't know how to use them, just like a service, they're not useful. So they're all coupled.
So I would add just a couple more things to that. Probably the way to framework it in your mind is think about build technology, and when you do, what would a bad guy do with it? What would a consumer do with it, which would cause bad results, and find ways to take care of that. Educate and make users aware of what you're doing so that they know they have these capabilities that are built into the system that they can use. Partner with people when you're not an expert. So many companies who are not have a core competency in something say that's not my issue. But the reality is if you partner, you can make it part of you can become part of that solution. And then finally, be the #1 partner you can be for law enforcement, because it's okay to admit that at the end of the day something bad could happen, but you want to be the person that doesn't slow down an investigation, but the person that actually helps bring justice to whoever the victim is out there. And I would look at it from that perspective. Okay. Anybody else?
I'll ask one. So there's a 100-pound gorilla not in the room, and probably, and it's Facebook. And so, what do you think? Let's just fast forward and assume that Facebook will create a way to deal with under 13-year-olds. What might that look like, and is that the solution?
So I'm actually in the middle of collecting data about parents and their understandings of the under 13 structure, and it's really interesting to be doing this. I've spent a huge part of the spring interviewing parents in focus groups, and now I'm about to go do a national survey of parents of ages 10 to 14. I will have data at the end of July for anybody who's curious. What's really fascinating to me is that most parents out there who do not work in the tech industry, by the way, the tech industry is the biggest skew for anything about parents, so I don't interview parents of people that work in the tech industry, but of average parents out there, think that the 13 limit is a recommendation along the lines of a maturity rating for PG-13. And therefore are actually typically very involved with awareness of kids violating the 13 limit. It typically starts first for email or IM, and it typically first starts for kids to get access to a communication system to talk to grandparents. That's the #1 pathway. It tends not to be actually friend-driven. By the time the Facebook comes down, Facebook is entirely friend-driven. Even there, the pressure tends to be around 11, 12 as sort of a dominant center of all of this. And what's really difficult there is that we have this moment where this law is really meant to protect the privacy of minors' data, and really, or under 13's data, and safety of their physical body with regard to privacy of certain kinds of data. And COPPA was very well intended. But there was another key component of COPPA, which was that the COPPA was designed to get parents involved in kids' activities online. And what's been ironic is how often parents are actually getting involved to violate the core tenets of COPPA simply because of how it's been limiting around access. One of the big challenges is that I actually think that all of the standards that we have about privacy are extremely important. But what has it meant in terms of implementation? It has meant that we limit kids' access to space, their access to community, and their access to public environments because of the prioritization of making certain that their data isn't collected. And I think that that's a huge challenge for us, and I really don't know what Facebook is going to do at all. But I think it's a huge challenge for the whole industry because the thing is that we see tons of parents violating COPPA. And this is clearly not working, and a stricter age verification is not going to help. It's just going to piss off more parents. But the challenge is, how do we actually make it so that we actually give parents the tools, and we really think through what the kinds of protections that are meant by COPPA? Because I think that the intentions behind COPPA are really still stand, even when the pragmatics behind it have fallen apart a decade later.
By the way, in case you're wondering, COPPA is Child Online Privacy Protection Act. Okay. You were raising your microphone?
Yeah, excellent points all around, and especially the point about parents helping their kids get on Facebook at younger ages. I mean, you think about the technology that could be used. Maybe they could use a retinal scan. Well, that wouldn't stop a parent from using their eyeball to scan their kid into Facebook. So I think we have to think about this in terms of there being a limit of what companies like Facebook can do with their size and the size of their membership, but also we need to be careful about where we place the onus of responsibility. Is it Facebook's responsibility to figure out what age is appropriate for a social network? They're just going by COPPA, as we said. It's always been my thought that it's up to the parents. They should look at their child's maturity, look at the maturity of their child's peers, get on Facebook, get very familiar with it, and make a decision about whether they feel it's a healthy environment for their child. And if they do, take steps to do it responsibly. But also, if a parent is going to simply allow their child to do whatever they want, we have to put some of the onus back on the parents. What are you doing to educate your child about it? Have you talked with them about the bad things that can happen? Do you check up on them regularly? Ask them who their friends are, those sorts of things.
So what I'm hearing is, before you complain, make sure you're a parent. Go ahead.
What percentage of kids in the United States between the hours of 3 and 6 are being supervised by their parents?
Actually, it's not by their parents, but the numbers are extremely large at this point because of structured activities that happen.
After school.
After school,
yes.
But after school structured activities, it's not parents at this point.
Right, it's Big Brother, it's brothers and it's girls and boys clubs, for example, doing a large part of this.
Organizations.
So the point is this, that it's sort of a pipe dream, in our culture to put the onus on parents. That's not to say it shouldn't be something we talk about, it shouldn't be something that parents take. Okay, but the reality is that parents are just not there. We see this. One of the things we do, one of the reasons we built the system we did was in effect to be kind of surrogate parents, which is what the Boys and Girls Clubs and these after-school clubs are as well, okay? And so one other point. I don't in fact think that our industry should be let off the hook. I think that if the lawyers say to you that if the kid checks the box, you're off the hook, that's not sufficient. I think that we actually have an obligation, if we do have kids on our site, we actually do have an obligation to do the right thing by them. So putting it all on personal responsibility of parents, I think is just passing the buck.
Let me actually not respond, but add to that this. If you actually think about it from a purely business perspective, because we're on a CE Week floor, which is really about creating technology and increasing your revenue potential through great technical ideas. If you think about what drives a business, it is not just you created a great product, it's you delivered what the consumer wants, and the last but probably the most important, when people think of you as a company, they say those are good people. They do the right thing, they care about me. In other words, you're building a brand that has a sense of goodness around it, and if it doesn't, advertisers go away, consumers go away, government comes calling, nonprofits look at you or advocacy groups look at you and say, what is wrong with you people? Don't you care? At the end of the day, it all ties to what you said, Michelle, in the beginning, which is your corporate social responsibility can drive the success of your business. So legal or not, this is a business question, not a legal question. And I think maybe that's what you're saying from a larger perspective. That's really what you're talking about.